Welcome back to another episode. I am Sticks. This is my co-host and best friend D-Lo, and we are Pardon My Wisdom. We got some good content for you today, but before we get into the actual episode, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like I said, like we said the last couple of weeks, it's 90% of y'all that ain't subscribed that's watching the video. So let's show us a little bit of love, help us get this content back out to y'all, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But of course, D-Lo, how was your Christmas, bro? How was your
Man,
Christmas, bro?
happy belated Christmas, my boy.
Happy belated
Christmas was
Christmas, my
good.
boy.
Yeah. Christmas was good. You already know what's coming. Spent time with the family,
Spent time with the family.
my
Facts.
immediate family as well as my extended family. So traveled back home. Both of us are from the same place. Went back there, got to chill with both sides of the family. We had a big gathering at my sister's house where we ate a lot, had a lot of laughs, had a lot of heartfelt moments. Just connecting, re-energizing with the family. So Christmas is good. The kids are happy for the most part. Some
For sure.
kids want certain things. They don't get exactly that. They kind of complain, how we used to do when we were young.
For
But
sure.
it is what it is. They got gifts and they're fortunate. I received gifts. I was able to give gifts, which is always a blessing, especially with what's going on right now in the economy and everything. So Christmas was good, man. Happy to spend time with the family. How about you? How was your Christmas holiday?
Man, mine's was just like my Thanksgiving. It was, I'm gonna be a little transparent. It was a little lonely, not gonna lie, because I'm out here in
Uh,
Washington by myself. You know what I'm saying? And I could have gotten Sam for Christmas, but her mom had all the family up. Her sister was here. Her best friend was here. Her family. Her mom was in town. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't make no sense for Sam to come be by herself with me. I just let her stay
mhm.
with her mom and enjoy the family, enjoy the Christmas holiday because I ain't selfish. You know what I'm saying? So I was in here just like Thanksgiving by myself, just kind of like watching basketball and watching football, just kind of chilling. It was what I got for Christmas. The best present I can get is my sanity. So that's what I got. I got sanity for
100%.
Christmas, brother. You know what I'm saying? So everything was cool, man. But I have Sam now up until the 8th. So I got her for the next 2.5 weeks. So me and her gonna relax, chill out, make sure we spend some time together. And I'm about to get her a volleyball trainer too. She don't know it, but she about to be doing some work. So
Oh, shoot.
she about to be doing some work. So I'm about to get her a job. I was talking to the girl last night about getting her a trainer. So that's in the works.
Yeah.
So everything is cool, man. Everything is cool. I did miss home, did miss family, but for that little girl, I get a world, man. You know what I'm saying? So that's why
Yeah,
I'm here.
100%. And
Yes, sir.
I'm sure she appreciates that. I say to many people that are in a situation where the baby father or the father of the child is not quite doing what he's supposed to do. I said, I guess I'm biased because I see situations and multiple situations from my friends that are nothing like what I hear. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, again, I just want to say I appreciate you for being a great example. And I'm sure Sam appreciates you for doing everything that you have done to be with
For sure,
her
man.
during these times. But I will say, if this thing blows how we want it to blow, then we can get you back on the East Coast. And these
For sure.
days, these type of times, you'll be with family and friends.
Man, I can't wait, bro. I can't wait. Let's make it happen, cuz. Let's make it
Yes,
happen.
sir.
But as far as the topics, what we got for the day, my boy?
My guy, we got some good topics today. He's going to stay kind of in the college ranks
Mm-hmm.
with our topics today. First on the docket will be the defense bill that may prevent academy cadets or service cadets from playing professional sports straight out of college. We'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
the chaos that's in the transfer portal with the NIL and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll also talk about Ed Reed being named the head coach of the illustrious HBCU that is Bethune-Cookman.
For sure, man. For sure. Let's get right into it, man. So let's go ahead and talk about the defense rule, my boy.
Yes, sir. So, um, in the last earlier this month, the
Mm-hmm.
provision was set in place by the government to not allow service academy cadets to delay their military services to pursue professional sports opportunities. This will end and the starting fiscal year 2023. The change is included in the National Defense Authorization Act, which has been approved by Congress and is awaiting the president's signature. Under this new rule, any agreement a cadet enters into to play professional sports before serving their military obligation will be considered a breach of their agreement to serve as a military officer. It is not yet clear on how this law will impact specific individuals, but we do know it is waiting the president's signature and is set to be set in place immediately. My boy Sticks, what are your thoughts on this change and how do you think it will affect current and future service academy athletes?
Man, so I noticed this a couple of weeks back. It's a linebacker that plays for Army. His name is Andre Carter Jr. He is projected to be a first round draft pick. And whenever this bill was passed earlier this month, it kind of, deterred his dream of playing professional sports a little bit. And which I think is kind of messed up, man, because throughout the years, you were able to you were able to go play football there, and if you got the opportunity to go play professional sports, you were able to do that and then serve your time afterwards, right? And
Mhm.
but there has been a couple of times in the past where, like Roger Staubach, the famous quarterback for the the Dallas Cowboys, he spent 5 years serving before he even started his Hall of Fame career in the NFL. So it's kind of like over the years, it's kind of been wishy-washy on how they wanted to actually do it. But here recently, you've been able to go pursue your professional career as far as sports prior to you actually having to serve your years. But now that with that defense bill, with it being a breach of your service obligation, like a lot of guys who have those aspirations, actually have that talent, are going through the situation where, oh my God, well, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? And I think it's kind of messed
Right.
up. And he had a bit, and Andre Carter had a really good point. Like, I stayed. He was thinking about going through the transfer portal and actually going to another school, but he stayed at Army because he has loyalty to the school and loyalty to the nation, as far as possibly at some point, living his obligation as a cadet. But that same loyalty wasn't given to him whenever this rule was passed. So he kind of made him and his family and the coaches made an uproar about it a little bit and kind of was like, "Hey, man, this ain't fair to him because he has first round talent. So it's not fair to him to
So
go pursue his professional career."
I'm glad you actually, because when you said it, I was like, dang, I meant to look that up. But do you
Yeah.
know if they can actually transfer from Army or whatever, the Air Force or Navy, to go to a school for whatever sport that they're playing?
Now
Because
that I'm
if
not.
they've
Yeah, go
signed
ahead.
that,
Go
well, I was
ahead.
just
Yeah,
going
my
to
bad. Go
ask
ahead.
if they've signed that agreement and the
Mhm.
agreement says that they can't play professional sports after college until
Mhm.
they've done their whatever time served,
Right.
then are they able to then transfer? That's a question I think we probably
We might need to look
need to
into.
look up. Yeah.
I believe that he can. I think your obligation to service isn't until after you finish your schooling. After you finish your 4 years,
Mhm,
after you graduate, that's when you have the obligation to go as a cadet or a midshipman. But
mhm,
up until I think while he's still playing and while he's still a student athlete, if he wanted to go through the portal and go to, say, Clemson or Florida State or Florida, he could do that. So he
uh-huh,
can transfer and without any obligation to have to do that after he graduates, because then at that point he's not a cadet anymore. Now he's a regular student athlete at another university. That's what I believe. I'm not 100% sure about
yeah,
that, so we have to check into it. But I believe that
yeah,
he
we'll have to look
is
into
eligible
that.
to go through the portal prior to him graduating from Army or Navy or Air Force or something like that. So I think he is able
And
to do that. And he said he was going to, but he ended up staying because he was loyal to the university and to his obligation to serve his country.
what year is he?
He's a senior.
Oh, so he has no more
No more.
eligibility.
Exactly. He's
Okay.
a senior.
Yeah,
Unless
so
he
that
unless he
sucks.
gained a couple unless he gained a year from COVID like everybody else had, but
Right.
um he's a senior at Army right now and he's projected to go first round draft pick. He's the number I think Mel Kiper has him as a number 20, the number 2 linebacker in the actual draft.
Oh. Oh, man, that sucks.
Exactly. So he's a first round draft pick. So if they didn't, but he was actually granted the let me see, let me find out so I can say it right. He was actually granted a legacy exception, so where he can actually go and enter the draft.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so the rule says, and let me make sure I'm quoting this correctly. Carter is entering. He was considered entering the transfer portal after the 2021 season, but decided to stay at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point because of the 2019 rule that allowed athletes to defer service until after their pro career. But it says that under the new provision, athletes who graduate after 2025 must complete a minimum of 2 years of immediate military service before they can turn pro at any sport. So everybody prior to 2021 can get that legacy exception, but everybody after July 2021 has to serve in a minimum of 2 years before they can try to go pro.
So they've put in place. So then, okay, that makes sense. They put in place to where those that are already in school will be able to stay under the same rules that are already in place, but those that enter at that time won't be able to take advantage of that rule that's already in place.
Exactly. So
Okay.
people who are coming out now have that legacy exception. Everybody after them, got to serve that time, and
Yeah.
to defend your country. So, which is I think it's, to me, honestly, is, I think it's whack. I mean,
Say how
you
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 feel.
you went to these universities, you went to Army, you went to Navy, you went to Air Force with the understanding that after you graduate, you're going to be a cadet. You
Mhm.
understood that you're going to be a soldier. But with these gentlemen or women, or these ladies and gentlemen who have the professional skill to go professional,
Yep.
they should be allowed to do so, especially whenever there's millions of dollars on the table for them to change their life and change their family's life and
Mhm.
change their lineage's life. They should be able to take the opportunity to go pro and actually play pro sports. I don't see why the government is forcing them to be a cadet if they have this talent. But that's just my opinion. What you think?
Yeah, so I completely agree with the last part of what you said and completely disagree with the ruling or this bill that's going to be passed. Um, However, we know that a couple of parties will argue this differently, right? You have a camp that says um, kids shouldn't be going to school in the first place just to play sports. They should be worried about their
Mhm.
academics. You have another party that'll say they should be concerned with the country more than their professional career or any professional league. You also have,
Mhm.
this last small pocket of individuals that'll say kids knew what they were signing up for when they decided to go to Army, Navy, or Air Force, right?
Right.
Those arguments, there is some validity in those arguments.
Mhm.
However, we know that there's a small percentage of individuals that have the opportunity to make it professionally in this country.
1%,
And
bro. 1%.
1%, right? Or somewhere around there, 1%
Mhm.
only has the opportunity to make it professionally. And that's being drafted in any round, getting undrafted, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Percentages are small. We also know that there's a small percentage of Division One athletes that actually play sport, or Division One. There's a small percentage of the Division One population that actually
Mhm.
plays sports for their school.
Right.
So you're telling me, as these service academies, that I only have 5% of my school that plays sports for me. Out of that 5%, only 1% has the opportunity to make it. And I'm going to tell them, if they do have the opportunity, no, you can't go because you have to serve your country.
You have an obligation
I
to your
mean,
country. Right.
I mean, I get that, but what I would rather, if I'm a service academy, I would rather have the opportunity to have some individual in some capacity down the line than to not have an individual at all. Because this, what's going to happen is kids are going to see that obligation that they have to go no matter what to serve their country for a short amount of time after college. And they're going to say, nah, I'm not gonna go. I mean, honestly, you
That's
and I
funny.
went through it when we were recruited. Because I mean, we both were recruited by these service academies. I mean, I love America, but I had no intention of ever going into any type of military or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
But that was one of the reasons why I automatically turned it down anyway, because I'm like, I don't want to go and serve in the Army or the Navy whatever the case may be. And we respect soldiers, we respect midshipmen, we respect Air Force. What is it? Is it cadets, pilots, Air Forcemen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Cadets and midshipmen. Mm-hmm.
right. We respect all of them. We love what they do. We respect them for what they do for our country. It's just not for me,
Right.
and I'm not afraid to say that. Uh,
Likewise.
so, so if I am the government, if I'm these academies, I would rather have some people in place than no people in place. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, it's only a select few that have that opportunity to be um, in the NFL or the NBA or the Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, whatever respective sport that is. So you're talking about a small number of individuals that you're probably going to miss out on. But what we know and why I think this rule has been put in place is we know that recruiting as a whole for the army and military has been down the last couple years. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
last year they beat their quota, their goal by 200 soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
and then the year before that, the army just beat their goal by 53 soldiers. So we know that as a whole is down. So if
Mm-hmm.
they're just barely beating their quota, and we're talking about a small percentage of individuals have the opportunity to make it to the pros, that small percentage could be a big difference to them making their goal or not.
That's a bit and I'm glad you brought that point up because, and just to take it a step further, not even with the quota of the army itself, but what about these actual sports programs for these universities? So you mean to tell me, and to the point you made about me and you deciding to go to college and opposed to going to the military, you know what I'm saying? We were athletes, so we were destined to go anyway. But honestly, and really good at exceptional athletes, but in opposed to going to the army, we decided to go to college. So say
Mhm,
you have a guy who is say 2-3 star athlete, right? That is being recruited by Army. Army is probably one of his best decisions that he could go to. He can either go to Army or he could go to Winston-Salem State. Not nothing about Winston-Salem State. I love y'all. Y'all HBCU. I love y'all. But
mhm,
Army is probably a better program, probably better academic program than Winston-Salem, right? So
mhm.
if you tell this athlete that if you go to Army and you ball out on the football field and you are projected to go number one, you can't go to the league because you have to serve 2 years. That 3 star is going to go to Winston, I believe, because
100%.
I think these programs are going to lose out on a lot of good recruits to keep their programs afloat, and they're going to be the not to say that Army and Navy and Air Force have not been good programs over the years, but historically they've been getting beat up by a lot of these bigger schools. And you need some of these good recruits to be able to come to your university or your program to be able to compete with some of these colleges, especially whenever you're independent. So
Mhm.
telling these athletes that have aspirations to go to the league that if you come here, you can't go to the league right out of college, you're gonna lose those athletes. And
Yep.
it sucks for the program and it sucks for these students. So, and not to say that going and serving your country is not a good thing to do. Like D'Lo said, we respect all of y'all. Y'all doing a bigger thing than me because I couldn't do it myself. But
Mhm.
a lot of kids, that's how I was growing up, that's how D'Lo was growing up. We had aspirations to be professional athletes, and we got damn close to doing that. So a lot of these
You
kids coming
closer
up
than
now
I.
have
We have that conversation all the
just
time.
just, just a little bit though, just a little bit. But
Yeah.
but But these kids have these same aspirations that we had as kids. And for them to not be able to do that and then come back, if they do their 2 years in the military and they come back and they try to go to the league, they already have 2 years of film that they don't have. They have 2 years of not playing organized sports. They have 2 years of not working out towards their craft. Now they're 2 years behind in something that they have always dreamed of being. And I don't think that's fair to
Right.
these athletes. So you're going to lose a lot of these 2, 3, even 4, 5 star athletes because they don't want to come to your university and then have to be obligated to go to the military. I don't think that's fair to them.
Yep.
I don't
No,
think that's
it's
fair to them.
definitely not fair. It's definitely not fair, and um, I think the military academies will feel the blunt of this blow,
Mhm.
or is it the brunt? Blunt
Brunt.
or
It's
brunt,
brunt.
whatever yeah,
Brunt.
the
Yeah.
brunt of this blow, immediately
Uh-huh.
because in 2003, they put together a committee to figure out how they can be more competitive in their
Mhm.
sports, and
Right.
one of the main, um outputs from those meetings from that committee was allow the athletes to go professional immediately. Um, And I think it was put into place, if not the next year, the year after that. And Army, I played Army when I was in college. Always tough. They all pretty much run the same type of offense. They run this
Yeah, that wing
wishbone
T.
option type
Yeah,
wing T,
yeah.
yeah, option type offense, and it's hard on the defense because they have to be so disciplined throughout the whole game, and they just chew up the clock. For those that don't know football, possession of time is key, especially if you're scoring a lot, you're getting a lot of yards because you're keeping the ball from the offense, the other team. So if you put that type of offense with top tier athletes, and we're talking about football because Sticks and I both play football. He played basketball as well, but you put that type of athlete in that type of offense, it just makes it that much better. And so,
Yeah.
especially with football, because it brings in most of the money for programs, individual programs, you you take those athletes out of those positions for those teams, and then they go back down to being not that competitive. And
Mhm.
Air Force is they won 10 games 2 years in a row.
Mhm.
Army is always competitive. I think they won like 7 or 8 games this year. Navy
Mhm.
also. So you take those players out, and I won't say it again. This is my last time saying it, but you take those players out of those programs, and they just go to being 4, 5 win programs, and just somebody that you put on the schedule to show respect to the country, but then also to
Right.
get an easy win for homecoming or whatever the case may be.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And it's funny because there is, I don't know if you saw the report, but there's a Republican, Mike Gallagher, the Republican from Wisconsin, that was one of the founders of this amendment of this rule to do away with the deferment. And
Mhm.
he argued that military academies exist to solely develop troops, not professional athletes. And I was like, bro, that is some bullshit to say. And then he goes on to say, talking about some, I'm gonna read this quote. When a midshipman or cadet opts to put off their service to obligation to pursue a career of professional athlete, in effect, it means they remove an opportunity from an individual who's committed to carrying out their service obligation immediately following graduation. So that means there are thousands of patriotic Americans who do not have the opportunity to attend military service academy because of these professional athletes.
That's
Like,
a lie.
bruh. I'm
I
like,
I
bro,
don't
what?
agree with
Like, what
it
are you talking about?
exactly. One, I don't agree with that because, um, there you have to be really smart to go to these schools. So
100%.
yeah, I mean, you have to be really smart, especially I don't know about Navy and Air Force, I would imagine, but Army, I know I've been to West Point. You have to be really, really smart to go to that school.
You
Then
do.
on top of being an athlete. So there may be 1,000 patriots that want to be in the Army. They're gonna have to go about it the regular way. They're not gonna go to West Point and be a part of that class in order to get into the Army. So
Mhm.
that statement, okay, it may be some validity in it. That the individuals that decide to pursue their dreams of going to the NFL or NBA, whatever the case is, may have taken an opportunity from one or two individuals that were smart enough to get into the West Point, into that
Mhm.
academy.
Mhm.
But we know statistically, n- not a lot of individuals can go to West Point and then will continue to be a part of the cadet class that is going to be in the Army, because it's also hard to stay at West
One
Point once you get there, getting up at 5
100%.
o'clock in the morning.
What?
It's
Yeah, bruh.
it is not easy. On top
Not
of
easy.
being an athlete, you also have to do all of the grueling stuff that they do on a
That the
regular
cadets
basis
do.
as a regular
Mhm.
student. So,
Yep.
I mean, let's not I'm mad at he said that. That's
Yeah,
terrible
let's not let's
that
not
he
let's not
said that.
discount these guys for sure. Because but so do
Right.
you think do you think he's based so what I think he's basically saying, and you can agree, you can disagree. What I think he's basically saying is if you're thinking about going and being a professional athlete, don't come to Army. Don't go to Air Force, don't go to Navy. Go somewhere where you think you can pursue a professional athlete career. That's what I think he's saying. But he also goes in to say, he says, I'm glad that the updated text grandfathered those players in, like the
Mhm.
like Mr. Carter. He was like, but moving forward, there is so much more work to be done to ensure our military service academies are laser focused on their core, which is training the next generation of warfighters, not professional athletes. He was really
I
this. He kind of pissed me off whenever I read this. Cause I was like, "What is he talking about?" Like, bro, like
yeah,
if these guys are at your university, they have the opportunity. Let
right,
them, because whenever they graduate, they still have that obligation to serve the country. So if they do 4 or 5 years in the NFL, they still have to do their 2 to 5 years in the military. So
right.
they still have that obligation to the country. But if they have that immediate, impact on their life to go play professional sports, let them, bro. Why not?
Yeah,
Why are you so mad, bro? Like that's what I said. I'm like, why are
yeah.
you so mad?
No, I agree with your statement. I think he is basically telling any individual that has aspirations of being a professional athlete, don't even look at the academies because one, we don't yeah, one, we don't want you to go, and two, you're not gonna go
Right.
to the pros. But I'll stick with what I said. If I am those academies, I'm kind of upset that you put this rule in place. Whether that's the people that are a part in charge of those sports or the academy itself, because I would rather have somebody in that position to fill those roles at some point in time than nobody, and hope that we can get somebody else to fill that spot.
That's what I hope too. And I'm gonna save my next question for our next segment. But with this rule being in place, that transfer portal about to go crazy, I think. But we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about
Mhm.
that next. We're gonna talk about that next in the
Yeah.
next segment. But my final wisdom on this is I'm so glad that they gave that legacy exception to the guys prior to the 2021 ruling. So that way they can
Mhm.
go ahead and pursue their professional career if they have the talent to do so. That's men,
Yep.
women, basketball, football, soccer, tennis, whatever they want to do. Um, but I am a little upset that this rule is going to hinder everybody moving forward, because it's going to not only hinder the athletes that are already in the academy, but it's also going to hinder the programs as well moving forward in the future for getting these better athletes, these higher profile athletes to come to Army or Navy or Air Force to be able to pursue a better program. Because like you said, these programs are 8 to 10 wins seasons right now, and for the past probably like 4 or 5 years they have been. But moving
Mhm.
forward, without those athletes, these programs are going to drop to 4 or 5 win programs, and they're going to be looked at, like you said, like a homecoming win, an easy win, because they don't have the athletes that these other schools have, because they don't want to go to Army, Air Force, or Navy anymore. So it's gonna be something crazy to see as things move forward, because I think it's gonna hurt the program and the students a lot, and the recruiting a lot. But the students that are already there are gonna be mad, and they're probably gonna leave. I'm not gonna lie, probably gonna leave. If they have aspirations to
Yeah.
go pro, they're probably gonna leave these academies. But what you think? What's your
So
final one?
I think this is telling of a couple of things. I've already mentioned one of them as far as what we're about to see as a country. Um, I think it's telling of the downward trend of enlistment for these
Hmm.
particular academies. I also think it's telling of we are gearing ourselves up as a country to be on ready alert, or as Kanye said, DEFCON 5.
For
we're
sure.
we're ready. We're going to be ready
Hmm.
to go at any point in time, especially with what's going on right now in
Hmm.
with Russia and Ukraine. At any point
Right.
in time, it could go south, and everybody on this planet is going to be part of World War III. So I think that's what this bill being passed at this point in time is really telling to me.
I got
I
you.
do think it's unfortunate that they will probably hold everybody, all the cadets that are part of these academies, their feet to the fire if they in fact do have the opportunity to turn pro.
Hmm.
But I think it also will be it will be damning to them. It will
Hmm.
hurt. It be hurtful to those academies because they will no longer get those individuals that they probably would have gotten to come to those academies and serve their country and then play the sport as well.
I agree. I agree, bro. 100%.
All right, so moving on to the transfer portal and the NIL,
Hmm.
which is a bit chaotic right now. So this year has seen a record number of athletes entering the transfer portal and attempting to leave their respective schools, and transfer to another school to play immediately. The transfer portal and the NIL have made it a lot easier to make athletes to make the decision to leave school and even potentially get more money for playing at these new schools. So,
Mhm.
Sticks, let's talk about the transfer portal and that has seemingly taken over college football. I know you want me to give a little bit of background on what the transfer portal is and the
Mhm.
NIL, so I can speak to that to update you on it or how you want to handle it.
So for what I do know, the transfer portal was created as a compliance tool
Hmm.
and this is I got this off of ESPN.com to
Yep.
systematically manage the transfer process from start to finish and to add a little bit more transparency to the process among schools and empower student athletes to make known their desire to consider other programs. I believe the transfer portal is amazing. I believe it's amazing.
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of background in it as far as, knowing exactly how it works and, but I do understand why a lot of the student athletes would do it because I'm looking at a Fox Sports ad I'm looking at something on Fox Sports right now where it says this is breaking down a lot of like profile players that went to different universities and are now transferring just as of December to other universities to get a better opportunity or to get more exposure, to possibly go professional, like we were talking about in the last segment. So
Yep.
this is 115 people from December 1st to yesterday that have entered the transfer portal and have either already decided what school they're going to or are still waiting for schools to give them some attention and give them some scholarship money or whatever the case may be. So break it down for me, D'Lo, about the transfer portal. Give me a little bit more insight on that.
Yep. Yeah, so the transfer portal was introduced in 2018, and what it
Mhm,
was it was a way to have smoother transaction for athletes that wanted to transfer. Because before the transfer portal, athlete had to ask the coach if they could transfer. The coach
mhm,
could say yay or nay. From there, they would go to their compliance officer. The compliance officer would then, you know, reach out to any school that they had interest in going to. The schools, if they had interest in that player coming to their school, they would send some type of questionnaire. I'm not quite sure what the questions entailed, but the
mhm,
compliance officer would have to fill those out, and then from there, the schools can communicate with that respective player on visiting their school and potentially coming to their school. Well, with the transfer portal, all the player had to do was then go to the compliance officer, say, I want to enter the transfer portal. The compliance officer would enter their information into the transfer portal, which is just a website that is not
mhm,
public, but coaches and administrators can look at. And from there, the schools can look at it. They can, you know, filter it based off of certain criteria, division, sport, so on and so forth, and see
mhm.
who's in there. Contact those individuals directly, whether it be by email. I think it's just email initially, but once they exchange emails, then they can get their phone number and communicate that way. Um, Now the flip side of it is, with the transfer portal, I don't know if I said this. I can't remember if I said it or not. The player now does not have to go to the coach. He can just go straight to the compliance officer.
Mhm,
The
mhm,
compliance officer say, "I want to enter the transfer portal." But if the coaching staff finds out and they don't necessarily agree with it, and let's say the player decides ultimately not to take his name out of the transfer portal, now the school that he wanted to leave has the power to say, "Well, we're going to take your scholarship." So
right, and
it's
what I would assume I don't mean to cut you off. What I would assume is
Mhm.
that this player that wants to go into the portal would at least seek some advice from his coaching staff or from his advisor or somebody of that nature to be able to say, okay, should I do this? What is the pros and cons? Without if I do decide to go through the portal and see if I can find a better opportunity for myself, will I lose my scholarship? Is that an opportunity? Is that is that
Well,
a con
yeah,
to it? You know what I'm saying? So I would assume that they would do that. You know?
that's the thing is there now with the transfer portal and the ability of you getting to another school so easily, and with the
Hmm.
ability of you potentially even getting to a better school.
Hmm.
The thing that's going around college football now in the college football circles is it's hard for coaches to really discipline players. It's hard for them if you have a top recruit or whatever the case may be. If you have him and he's not playing, it's hard for you to not play him or use that as a disciplinary reason because they'll just enter the transfer portal. And I say that because you
Mm-hmm.
said the player that's wanting to transfer may seeks guidance on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes that's not the case. They're just saying, "Well, all right,
Oh yeah.
I'm not seeing what I want right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you talking about. I want to transfer." Um, but there's a couple of things that also changed recently that has made the transfer portal even more prominent and promising for players. So when the
Mm-hmm.
rule was created, initially only graduate players could leave that school and play at a different school immediately. But
Okay.
April 2021, that rule changed. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's your first time transferring, you can go to another school no matter if you're going up or down. So up means you're going from Division 2, Division 3 to Division 1,
Mm-hmm.
and down meaning you're going from a higher division to a lower division or across a division.
Because it used to
So
be if you go down, you didn't have to sit out, but if you go down, you do have to sit out, but if you go up, you don't, right? That's how it
No,
used to
no,
be,
no.
right?
So
It was
no,
backwards
so if you yeah, backwards. If you go down, you could play immediately. If you go
immediately.
up, you could not. You had to
Gotcha.
sit
Yeah.
out a
Okay.
year. And if
Okay.
you like, let's just say um across the division. So if I was staying in Division 1, but I
Mm-hmm.
was going from let's say NC State to Nevada or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever the case may be, I had to sit out a year unless I got a waiver from the NCAA saying, okay, due to this circumstance, you are able to transfer and play immediately. And immediately means playing the next year. So if I was to
Mm-hmm.
transfer mid-season, I couldn't play in that season. I had to wait till the next season to play.
Right. Right. Right.
But April 2021 changed that. So from there, with that ruling, you could play immediately no matter where you were going. If it was your first time transferring. Now after that, you had to follow the old rules that we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But then also what followed that April 2021 ruling was the NIL. And so this is why
Hmm.
this is another aspect of the transfer portal that's really like changing the landscape of college football.
Okay.
And we talked about this in episode 3 of
Yeah.
our
With Mikey Williams.
podcast,
Yep.
right? About talking about the NIL and how players are now able to make money. And it was intended to be advertising dollars, but what's really happening is boosters are pooling together money and enticing players to come over. And so this is why the transfer portal is starting to get a little chaotic. It's a trend right now where players are balling out at the school that they signed up to play for, so that their
Mm-hmm.
scholarship that they signed to, and they're then entering the transfer portal and trying to get money to play at either a bigger school or a school that where their boosters have deep pockets and
Mm-hmm.
are telling them to come. Um, Many are saying, as I mentioned earlier, that this is going to be a trend that changes the college football landscape. So, in fact, today on his podcast, Slow News Day, Kevin
Mm-hmm.
Clark says the recruiting class from high school establishes your floor. The portal is going to be your ceiling. So, what he meant by that was your recruits from high school are going to be your baseline, your pretty much your foundation for your respective teams, whether that's football, basketball. You're seeing the transfer portal be heavily talked about in football because football is one of the only sports that has a 3-year mandate for you to
Mm-hmm.
enter the professionals, whereas every other league, there's either no age limit or it's like
It's a
19,
1 year
which
elite.
is
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm. Which
It's
is like
1 year.
1 year.
So
Mm-hmm.
right. So players don't really have to worry about transferring back and forth unless they're not that good. They're not good
Mm-hmm.
enough to be in the professional ranks. But then Kevin goes on to say that he believes that more star players are going to go from team to team and they are going to be um, enticed by boosters to go play for $1 million contracts. I wholeheartedly believe this is going to be the case, and this is the new situation. This is um, the new. What am I trying to say here? It's going to be the new area of football that we're sitting in right
It's gonna
now.
be the new normal.
Case
Yeah,
in
it's gonna be the new normal.
It's gonna be the new normal for football, for the NCAA in general,
Mm-hmm.
because a great example of that would be just recently, as early as this month, the UNC quarterback Drake May, who decided to
Mm-hmm.
stay, was offered. I believe it's reported that he was offered up to $5 million to go to another university, and he
I'm
decided
out
to
the
stay.
door. I ain't gonna lie to you. If I'm Drake, I'm out the door. I ain't gonna.
I I think anybody would, but I mean, that's the thing though. If he was offered $5 million to stay, I mean to leave, and he stayed, how much money was he offered to stay?
True. That's a good point. That's a good point. I was about
You
to
know what
say
I
that
mean?
too. He probably was
So
offered more than $5 million to stay for sure. For sure.
exactly. So
Right.
um I mean, we don't know if he was
Yeah.
actually offered any money or not, but what we do know is Mac Brown did say that he did confirm that he was offered a large sum of money to leave. He didn't name the individual university
Mm-hmm.
that offered that money, but he did confirm that.
Sheesh.
I just floated out the opportunity. I just floated out the possibility that he was probably offered more money to stay.
Mm-hmm.
That has not been confirmed or not, but you can only
Okay. Only
question that, right?
imagine. Right.
You
If
can
he
only
stayed,
imagine and
he
speculate that.
come on. Exactly.
Right. So, but that's why I decided that this would be a good topic to talk about, is because for so long the NCAA was telling players, one, you couldn't transfer and play right away.
Mm-hmm.
They frowned upon that because then you're looking at transactions. I said the word transactions earlier for on purpose. You're looking at
Mm-hmm.
transactions occurring. You're looking at players constantly going from school to school, and that's hard for coaches to manage those rosters. And then two, they also told players that they couldn't make money. So now you have everything that they said that they didn't want is going on. I think college football has changed forever.
I think it has too,
What are your
man.
thoughts?
You kind of look at it, man. You look at the Spencer Rattlers of the world. You look at the Baker Mayfields of the world. Those guys who utilize the transfer portal to get to, and whenever the line says better schools, it means better sports program. Just in case anybody gets pissed off about saying this school ain't better than my school or whatever.
Right.
But
100%. Glad you
but
cleared that up.
yeah, so they're just trying to get to these student athletes who are high, 3, 4, 5 star recruits come out of high school. They're trying to figure out how can they, number one, maximize their name, image, and likeness, and number two,
Mhm.
maximize their opportunity to get to their big dream, which we talked about last segment, of getting to the NFL or the NBA or the MLB or however they want to, whichever dream that they have. So the transfer portal allows them to say, okay, cool. I went to FAMU. I balled out at FAMU. Let me see if I have an opportunity. As a receiver, I got 100 catches, 1,000 yards at FAMU. Let me see if Florida State might say, okay, damn, he balled out at FAMU. Let's give him an opportunity here with a full
Mhm.
scholarship and offer him his name, image, and likeness to be worth about $2 million. And that's what these kids are looking for now. Now that they have these opportunities to maximize their NIL, and possibly get to a stage where, of course, FAMU is an illustrious HBCU and they have a good program, but Florida State, the prestige of that university and the actual notoriety that it has could get him way more looks as far as the NFL is concerned anyway, especially if he gonna ball
Yep.
out the same way he balled out at FAMU. So
Mhm.
it just gives them opportunity. It's not taking any opportunity away from them. It's giving them these options to say, damn, I can take advantage of this and possibly reach the dream that I've always had as a kid. So
Yep.
I like the transfer portal. What the thing that you talked to, when we were planning this throughout the week, you talked about your boy from Wake Forest. And
Yep.
he
Yep.
played 4 seasons, right? If I'm not mistaken, 4 seasons
Yep.
at Wake Forest, and now he's gonna utilize the transfer portal to take that 5th season to go to Notre Dame.
Mhm.
To me, it doesn't make sense, but I guess in the sense of what I just said about the NIL and utilizing it to reach their dreams, I guess it makes sense to him. But how do you what kind of sense do you make of his decision?
I don't. I mean, I can understand
He was
going to
balling at
Notre
Wake
Dame.
Forest. He was doing his
Yeah,
thing, because
yeah.
it's a
So
little bit of a more prestigious program, but still, like,
I
come on,
can,
bro.
yeah. So the thing that I can understand is him going to Notre Dame. We're talking about Notre Dame, the Notre Dame football.
Mm-hmm.
To be a part of that program, to have your name attached to that type of program, you know, to me holds a high place in the world of football. If you
Agreed.
can, no matter where Notre Dame is in their program as far as wins and losses, having your name attached to Notre Dame is going to put you at a different pedestal than somebody at Wake Forest. My
Mm-hmm.
school, I love it, but no offense to them, but it's not Notre Dame.
It's not Notre Dame, right?
Where I have a issue with it is he is the all-time leading he's the all-time leader of touchdown passes.
Mm-hmm. I think I
Balling
read that he
at
was
Wake Forest.
also all-time leader of actual passing yards.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, he's
he
the
was
leading
doing his
passer. He's
thing at
broken a
Wake
lot of
Forest.
records. Yeah, right.
He broke many records at Wake Forest, right? And for the ACC, right?
Mm-hmm.
His name was in the at one point. He ended the year not so great. The team ended the year not so great, but to
Mm-hmm.
start the year and up to like game 7 or 8, he was the top. And in talks of being the top, one of the top 5, top 3 quarterbacks to come off the board. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like he didn't do his thing. But what I think happened is towards the end of the year, he didn't play as well as he should have,
Okay.
because Wake Forest is a different type of offense. They're RPO based offense,
Mm-hmm.
and while the RPO, and we don't want to get too much into depths of the actual sport of football, while RPO is starting to see a lot more of action in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
most NFL teams want to see you run either a truly spread type offense, or a traditional under center offense.
Mm-hmm.
And um, he's not the first quarterback to have success at Wake Forest and decide to leave to go to a different school. It's just the amount of stats that he put up is kind of surprising. Wish
Right.
him the best, but for the in talks of the transfer portal, to me, it's kind of strange for a kid like that to have his name. Because I mean, for me, okay, let me just say what I want to say. I
Go do
think
your
he
thing.
should just go to. I think he should just go to the NFL, put his name in the NFL to be drafted, rather than going to Notre Dame. Because I mean, while you do have the ability to go to a program like Notre Dame
Mm-hmm.
and update your status, knock on wood, you also have the ability to have something else more detrimental happen, to where
For sure.
that dream of you going to the NFL is taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like, while the transfer portal, I'm for the transfer portal. I'm for players making money in college sports now, because for so long we have been taken advantage of,
Mm-hmm.
and watch people that coach us make all of this money, watch schools make all this money, but the product that people are coming to see gets nothing but a sandwich, some meals, room and board, and a couple of clothes. Okay,
Facts.
that's great, but
Right.
can I get a little bit more? So I think it's great, but I think some of these kids that are deciding to ball out, or that are balling out and have the potential to go to the NFL and are eligible to go to the NFL, I think they either need to go to the NFL
Mm-hmm.
or try to transfer a bit earlier, so that they
100%.
have the opportunity to prove themselves a bit earlier, rather than waiting so long. It's just odd to me, that he is 25, 26, something like that,
It
and
says
he's
20, 24 years old.
oh, so he'll be
He
25.
turns
Okay,
24. He turns 24 this coming July. So, well, yeah, he turns 24 in July. So he's 23, going to turn 24 in July.
so he'll be 23. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's just odd to me that somebody that old collegiately, and it's not old, but when we're talking about college football,
I mean,
historically,
I finished my senior season at 21, so that's old.
yeah, that's
When
what
it
I'm
comes to,
saying.
but
So
see, I also finished my senior season of basketball at 24 because I went to the NFL, came back, got my degree, played basketball for that year, and I was 23 years old whenever I graduated. So yeah,
right, but what I'm saying, the average age of athlete, no matter what it is, when they've exhausted all their eligibility, is usually 22.
Yep. Between
And
18 and
so
22. Yep.
because of COVID, the NCAA allowed people to have additional year of eligibility to make up for what they may have lost um, on the field or on the court. And so
Mhm.
now you have the average age is going up. I don't know how they get past that moving forward because, I don't know. I'm sure some way it'll be waned out or something like that. But long story short, if I was him, I would just went to the league. But if you can go to Notre Dame and make what a NFL vet would make, which is $1 million or 400, whatever the case is. I forgot what the NFL vet minimum is, but if you can make that for a year, then maybe it's worth it because
Maybe it's worth it.
maybe not saying he won't make it to the league, but maybe you don't make it to the league, but you in turn got money because you decided to transfer, still be in college. He's probably going to take 1 or 2 classes as a graduate,
Mhm.
not really have that much stress on him, and live a life of
Luxury for that
luxury
year and all
for
they got
that
to do
year.
is focus on football and all they got to do is
Yeah.
because I think a lot of these players because I was
No
reading in here too.
bills.
No, zero. But I was reading in
Yeah.
this article too about the guys who were entering the transfer portal. Bruh, Oklahoma is losing 3 of their receivers into the
Yeah, and
transfer portal.
they're probably gonna go to USC. I don't know for sure, but you know.
So it's crazy. But just to get back to the Wake Forest quarterback's name is Sam Hartman. Just to get back to him, he had a really good completion percentage at 63%, 3,700 yards, 38 touchdowns, and is going to leave Wake Forest as the all-time leading passer in his senior season to go play a graduate year over at Notre Dame. And I think a lot of these guys are doing this, number one, because these bigger schools get a little bit more exposure. Notre Dame gets a little bit more national exposure than Wake Forest gets. So with him being
Right.
an actual good quarterback, if he goes to Notre Dame and balls out like he did at Wake Forest, if he was looking at being the fifth quarterback brought off the board, he might jump up to number 2 or number 1 if he balls out. So
Right.
that's a little bit more exposure for him. He balled out at Notre Dame, that prestigious university, that prestigious
They'll
program.
play in bigger games,
They're
and
playing
because
bigger
they're
games.
independent, they'll play the USCs, they'll play the
The
whatever, the
Alabamas, they'll
Texas.
play the
Right.
Texases, and you know what I'm saying? So they'll play those. They'll play Michigan because that's the rivalry
But
game. You know what I'm saying?
what's
So
funny, and not to cut you off, but I wish that fans could choose 1 or 2 games that colleges had to play that year, because you always see it in the NFL where a trade has happened or somebody decides to go to another team.
I see what
That
you're
next
saying.
year they
Then next
put
year they
that
play
team
that
on
team on the
that
schedule.
they play
Yeah.
that team. I kinda wish that would happen just to see, that would be
But
must-see TV,
Notre
especially
Dame,
with all the transfers. They're
yeah, but
in the
Notre Dame has
ACC,
the
so I
no, not
well,
the
they're not
football
in the
program.
ACC.
Football
They're
program is still
not in the
independent.
ACC, but right. They're
Yeah.
not in the ACC, but they're obligated to play, or they're contractually obligated to play 5 or 6 games of ACC teams every year.
Wake Forest is
So,
gonna be on
it
there.
it very well could be that Wake Forest, it's their turn to play Wake Forest this year, because I don't think they played them this year. So
Bruh.
that would be interesting. But I
That
I,
would
I
be.
I wish that could happen across all transfer portals, where if somebody left a school that was a
Mhm.
star and they decided to go to another school, that school that they left was on the schedule. Because I mean, you just want that's good
That would be
TV.
exciting. It's
And
good
most
TV. It would
times,
be definitely
yeah,
be exciting. It would
yeah,
definitely be exciting. But
yeah,
there's
yeah.
so many universities, bro, with so many kids jumping into the portal. It's not like free agency where it's like 100 people. There are
Right,
thousands and thousands and thousands
thousands.
of kids. So it would be hard to
Right,
manage in that part. But I understand what you're saying. That would be primetime TV to see
yeah,
Sam Hartman at Notre Dame play against Wake Forest. That game would
right.
literally be on national TV, probably at 8 o'clock game at night. For sure, for sure.
100%,
100%. So that
100%.
would be dope. But I think I like the transfer portal. You know what I'm saying? I think it's dope for a lot of the kids who I honestly think it's dope for the kids who are those 3 and 4 star players who aren't getting that run that they think they deserve at the university that they
Mhm.
chose on signing day. So say it's
Yep.
like a 4-star kid that isn't getting the burn. He's just playing special teams where he might have got 10 catches for 100 yards throughout the season, but he feels like he's better than that. He can utilize the transfer portal, go somewhere we can get a little bit more playing time and possibly show what he can really do in a program that utilizes him a little bit more or might need him a little bit more. So I think that's
Yeah.
dope in that sense. But in a sense of like Sam, no disrespect to him, Mr. Hartman, just go to the league, bro. Like, just go ahead and go to the league.
Yeah.
If you're supposed to be the 5th quarterback off the board, you're probably gonna go second round. You're still gonna get tens of millions of dollars. So just go to the league. Just go to the league. You'll get more and living your dream right out of Wake Forest, as opposed to taking that 1 year to just go to use a graduate year to go to Notre Dame and possibly boost your stock, which I hope happens. But it's like almost tomato, bro, to me, honestly. Almost tomato.
Yeah.
But I like the
Yeah.
portal though.
Yeah. No, I 100% like the portal. I like the NIL, which stands for name, image, and likeness for those that don't know. So athletes are able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness within college sports, which they historically have not had the opportunity to do. I like both of those. However, I think if it continues to be kind of chaotic like it is,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the NCAA likes it. I see them as not liking it, and they'll probably revise some of the rules for how name, image, and likeness is handled, and then
Mm-hmm.
also maybe the transfer portal as well. I don't know. I don't see them doing anything to the transfer portal, but the name, image, and likeness they'll probably do something
Tinker
with
a little bit.
because
They're probably tinkered
they'll
some.
they'll tinker it. They'll definitely tinker it because they didn't envision it being used how it's being used now. Like I said
Right.
earlier, their initial thought was advertising dollars or
Mm-hmm.
athletes being able to use their name, image, and likeness for companies and businesses to use them in their advertisement stuff like that, not for boosters to put money together to pull players into schools, which I still really don't have an issue with, but I don't think that was the NCAA's intent when they created that rule.
I don't think it was either. But I mean, like my final wisdom, the portal is dope. The kids are using it to their advantage for sure.
Yep.
Trying to maximize their opportunity and maximize the money that they get off of their NIL. I do see that the NIL will probably get tinkered, and it'll probably be like they'll probably keep it from being. They'll probably eventually take it out of the boosters' hands and put it back into the university's hands, or put it back into the NCAA's hands itself to actually do it what it was intended for, which was the advertising dollars. But I mess with it, man. I mess with it. I mean, kids, if you out there, you're listening, you got aspirations, and you want to, you're going to a big time university, or even if you're going to a HBCU and you feel like you got an opportunity to do something better, live your dream, bro. If you want to go from
Mhm.
NCCU to NC State, which is right down the street, and you want to use the portal, man. Just make sure you're being smart with it, and make sure you understand the ups and downs and the pros and cons to it. Because if you have scholarship at NCCU and you don't get picked up at NC State, NCCU can probably take that scholarship from you. So just know what you're doing before you actually go through it, and take that bet on yourself to do
Yeah.
something a little bit better, the better program.
Yeah. So staying with the college theme for today, Ed Reed will be named Bethune Cookman's next head coach.
Yes,
This is big
sir.
news because Bethune Cookman is an HBCU, and many
Mm.
HBCU
Mm.
loyalists are hoping that his impact will be similar to that of the one and only Deion Sanders. Sticks, I have multiple questions for this segment.
I got a few too.
Um, I'm just going to start with: do you think Ed Reed can have the impact that Coach Deion Sanders did? I'm sorry, let me do that. Let me give his
Come on,
respect.
man. Call him
Do
what
you
he
think
is, bro.
do you think Coach Ed
Mm-hmm.
Reed can
Mm-hmm.
have the same impact that Coach Deion Prom Sanders had at the HBCU level?
So that's one of the questions I had too. So I'm glad I can take that off my list. But it's not. Mine's a little bit different. But I think that with Ed Reed's knowledge of the game and Ed Reed's love for the kids, he will be able to rally those kids around him at Bethune Cookman, and I think he'll be able to turn that university around. Because the last few years they haven't been good at all. This past year they were 2-9, so
Mhm,
I think he better at least turn that around. But Coach Prom actually, back in 2021, he actually put Ed Reed in the spotlight for one of these spots back in April 20, but last year, a year and a half ago. He was actually pointing out Ed Reed, and he was actually pointing out Ray Lewis, and said, guys that I know that are truly interested and they love the game and they love the kids, they could be phenomenal. It could be a phenomenal thing if they got head coaching positions. So I think Coach Prime put him in the spotlight to be primed to get one of these, no pun intended, but to be primed to get one of these head coaching positions, especially at the HBCU.
mhm.
But my question to you which I think I know the answer to this question, what you're gonna answer is, do you, because he don't have much experience. So do you think it was because of his profile that he got this job? Or was he actually worthy of being the head coach of this university?
So yeah, you already know what I'm gonna say. I feel like Hall of
Yeah.
Fame football players absolutely deserve to be in this position, deserve to get these head coaching jobs. And no offense, but especially at HBCUs. We're talking about players that played at the highest level of football and played at the highest level. They had to be, they had to play at the highest level in order to be considered, even considered to be a part of the Hall of Fame, which
Right.
only a select few get get entered into the Hall of Fame every
And
year.
he was first balloted too. First
First
time. First
ballot.
time trying.
And
Yep.
I mean, Ed Reed was a baller
Baller.
when we talking about football. So I 100% believe he should be included, or people of his status deserve to be um, head coach of Bethune Cookman. And I mean, it's not like he doesn't have any type of coaching experience. He was a assistant DB coach for the Buffalo Bills in 2016 or something like that. While he wasn't on the field at Miami the last 2 years, he was a part of their program as a director of a chief of staff.
He was
So
chief of
he's
staff.
been
Yep.
around the game. He's been around the game. He's been in these meetings with coaches, game planning every week. At Miami, he's probably recruiting. I mean, because he went to the University of Miami, so he's probably heavy in their recruiting process. So it's not like he doesn't know anything about being a college coach. It's just he hasn't had that head coach experience. And Deion Sanders, Coach Prom's, um, in his situation, he was a part of football in every aspect. Essentially, he was on the NFL Network. He coached his kids' little league. He created an academy. I forgot what it was called. Is it Prom Academy? He
The Prom
created
Academy.
where he was a head coach of that team, and they were successful. He had always had aspirations. If you listen to him talk, he initially didn't have aspirations of being a coach, but once he started coaching his kids, it kind of picked up steam, and he just fell in love with it.
Yeah,
He
he
always
said that in
says,
his interview with Shannon Sharp.
right. He said he always wanted to impact kids' lives, but never thought about coaching until he actually started coaching. And I truly believe that's the same with Ed Reed. He may not have thought of coaching football, but he thought about impacting kids' life because, as we have seen the last couple years, maybe decade, like people underneath us, underneath our generation, well, our generation is kind of messed up too, but it seems like kids are going down a different path and they need a little bit more guidance than what we
I
needed
agree.
originally.
100%.
And it might not, it may just be that the internet makes it more prevalent and it puts it more in our face than it was back in the day. But, there definitely needs some type of guidance. And kids will really only listen to you if you have some type of status behind your name now. And so, Ed Reed, Deion Sanders, Eddie George, those type of players, those caliber of professional athletes, they're going to command that respect just because of who they are.
Who they are, right?
Um, yeah. So I feel like yes, he deserves to be in that role. As far as his impact, and maybe I'll just try to answer, rebuttal my
Yeah,
question that I asked to you. I
right.
think I definitely think he will have an impact at Bethune Cookman.
Mhm.
Um, I I don't know his personality enough to say if it will be the same as Deion Sanders at Jackson State, but I definitely think he'll have some type of impact. He'll command his program. He'll command respect from the players, and like you said, he'll probably drastically change that program around.
Mhm.
I just don't know if it'll permeate. I like the word permeate. I just don't know if it'll. I don't know if it'll go throughout all of HBCU, other HBCU schools as say a Deion Sanders presence did. Just because, like we said in two podcasts ago, Dion is the ultimate salesman. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna make sure that butts are in the seat. He did it when he was playing. He did it as we saw as a head coach at Jackson State. Um, Ed Reed was more so of a hard nosed, let's get this shit done type of player. And I expect that to be who he is as a coach. But
Mm-hmm.
we also said in a Dion podcast that we did 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that Dion did leave the blueprint, and somebody can do exactly what he did, but they don't need to try to be Dion. They need to try to
Right.
be himself. So
Right.
if Ed Reed can take that blueprint that Dion left and mold it to who he is as a person and who he was as a player, and do that with who he will be as a coach, I have no reason to not believe that he can do the same things that Dion did at Jackson State. I just don't think they'll be in the same grand grand gesture as Dion did at Jackson State.
I agree with you. And that was one of my other questions I was going to ask was, do you think he becomes one of those voices for HBCUs and the income resource disparity that Prime started? I think he can be. And like you said, it has to be in his own accord. He can't try to be as outspoken as Prime because, like you said, Prime is a character within himself. He's going to be
Mm-hmm.
he has a distinct way of getting his point across and using words and using his personality to get what he needs. He has a distinct way of doing that. Like you said, I don't know Ed Reed's personality enough to know if he's going to be able to do that. But from knowing the type of player that Ed Reed was, like you said, being hard nosed, being a go get it, let's get it done, and work hard and win the game, he's gonna use that personality and use that to his advantage to be able to push Bethune Cookman over the top. Now, as far as the blueprint, I think that, and I think I said this whenever we were talking about Prime. We both agree that it doesn't have to be somebody like Prime, but I think it has to be somebody outspoken enough to get that attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have rarely seen Ed Reed talk. No,
Yeah.
like
So
for real, like
yeah.
he didn't do many interviews. When he did speak, it was
Yeah.
kind of, not necessarily monotone. He had energy in his voice, but it was like very short. Like I've rarely seen Ed Reed speak. So I'm excited to see how he commands his huddles and how he commands his team because he has to be outspoken as a head coach. But as far as the matter at hand, as far as bringing that attention and getting the resources and the money and the profits to the HBCUs, I don't know if he's the guy for that. But he can
So
still bring attention to it in his own way.
I don't know Ed Reed. I know a couple of close friends of mine that play with Ed Reed,
Mm-hmm.
so they know him better than I do, obviously. But with the little bit that I have seen of Ed Reed, he is outspoken. He's
Mm-hmm.
just not as outspoken as Dion. And
Not
so
as
in that,
eccentric. Yeah, you're right.
right. And so in that aspect, I don't know if he is the guy that is going to talk for so in one of our podcasts when we were talking about Dion and his wanting the money to increase for HBCUs when they played PWIs in these money games. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if Ed Reed is that person that's going to be that type of outspoken. Now,
Got you.
if there's something that happens directly to him, I have no question that he's going to speak out about it and be strong with his stance. But to say, "Oh, well, I look at the money game that we played when we played Alabama, and we only got $400,000, and then I go look at uh, North Carolina Central, and they only got $400,000 to play Duke, and then I go look at. I don't think that's going to be him, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
could be
yeah, yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
I hope I am because that's good for HBCUs, because then it is truly him stepping into that mold that Dion left behind and trying to impact change on HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that is him. I don't think he's that type of outspoken.
I don't think so either. I think, like you said, if it happens directly to him and his program, I think he'll be outspoken about it. And I think he'll be one of those guys who Prime was saying that need to come together as a collective and negotiate these numbers. I think he'll be one of those guys to stand up and say, okay, cool, let's negotiate this. I don't want to make 400,000. These guys, these dudes need to make 1 million because when you look at the amount of money that you're getting to put into travel, housing, room and board, If they request the band got to be there. That's a lot of money that these universities are putting into it. And for you to spend $300,000 to get your football program and your band to go play Michigan as Bethune Cookman, if you spend $300,000 and you're only getting $400,000 back, that's basically break it even, and you're not really giving me nothing to come play this game to come get beat
Right.
70-15. So
Right.
instead of giving me $400K, give us 1.5, and we'll come and we
How'd
can
you
come beat
come up with
all that.
70-15 though? That's an odd
I
number.
don't know.
Even
It was
15.
just, but most of the, they went for two. They went for two, but they went for two and got it. It was at the end of the game. They went for two and got it. It was 70-7. They scored. They went for two, but
Yeah,
now it
yeah.
was because most of these games with these Power Fives playing against
They
these
blowouts. Yeah,
HBCUs,
yeah, yeah.
they usually blowouts. So that was just a number I came out the top of my head. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
he'll be one of those that say, okay, Bethune Cookman needs more. I don't think he's going to be outspoken as Dion was for all HBCUs. But directly with Bethune Cookman, he's gonna be outspoken for sure. I think that
Right.
for sure.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So my last question, because you pretty much asked the other question that I asked about
Oh, bet.
head coaches, Hall of Famers getting the nod because of their name or because of their resume. So we both tackled that one. But
Yeah.
my last question is: should HBCU loyalists be concerned with this trend of coaching hires?
I honestly think if it does become a trend, say for instance, over the next 3 years, Coach Reed goes, just like Dion did, he goes 30-5, right? Over the next 3
Mhm.
years. And freaking Nebraska comes calling and he
Mhm.
leaves. I think a lot of the community, our community, will treat him just like they treated Prom. But to lead into another question that I had is Prom and this I'm gonna still answer your question, but this just leads into another question that I have for you. Is this the case of the prime example, quote unquote, where Dion
Mhm.
has set the precedent across the country with hiring black coaches? So I think it's going to be, if it does become a trend, I think a lot of the black community and black loyalties will eventually come to terms with the fact that Deion Sanders set an example. Now we see more of our people getting these head coaching positions, and we see more of our people getting promoted to higher universities. And
Mhm.
I think over time, once this trend continues and there's more of our people in these positions and more of our people getting to the Colorados and the Nebraskas and the Miamis and stuff like that, I think it'll become something that's praised and opposed to look down upon. You at an HBCU, you're gonna leave for PWI. No, it's gonna be like, okay, the HBCU is gonna be the filter for our people to get better. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's what I think is going to end up being as far as that trend. Now, initially, of course, Coach Prime took the brunt of it. He put that on his back. So now all the other guys who come in and go to HBCUs and go up and keep going up and keep going up, it's going to be okay. Coach Prime took that beating for us. Now we can move forward, and now all of our people will get on board with it. It'll be that train that keeps moving, and people that actually start praising it at some point. That's what I think is going to happen. But initially, Coach Prime took it. Ed Reed will take it over the next 3 years if he does decide to leave to go to a PWI. But the more it keeps happening, the more we keep seeing our people progress, I think it'll be fine eventually.
Yeah. So I think that they are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I think they should be happy. So I think HBCU loyalists should be happy
100%.
with this trend, because what their concern is that these individuals, which we're talking about Hall of Famers stepping into the head coaching role at HBCUs, their concern is that they're just using this as a stepping stone.
Agreed.
Okay. It is completely a stepping stone. But
100%.
in their time at these HBCUs, one, just who they are will bring attention to HBCUs, as we saw with Coach Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Just their presence alone will bring better recruits to these HBCUs that they're involved with, just because
Mm-hmm.
who they are, as we saw with Coach Prime. Just because of who they are and what they have done in the past and the connections that they have made in the past, they will get outsiders that aren't HBCU loyalists. They will get them to come in and potentially use some of their resources to help improve the respective HBCUs that they're at. Now, after we release our podcast on Coach Prime, we saw that people commenting saying that he didn't, do all of that. The stuff was already in the works. Well, he helped finish it. How about that?
Right.
So the same
Exactly.
thing is going to happen with these others, because I'm assuming that other Hall of Famers or other high caliber football players that want to get into the coaching profession will also follow the same path of going to HBCUs. So they will help complete some of the things that haven't been completed as far as facilities at the respective universities, so on and so forth. So I think HBCU loyalists should be happy that this is going to happen. And I also think it's smart for the athletic directors of HBCUs to use this and I'll say it, to use Hall of Famers to bring more attention to HBCUs. They get to
Mm-hmm.
use the names of well-known football players as coaches for their respective
NIL.
schools to exactly
Yep.
NIL to gain that notoriety that you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it says to players that are maybe playing right now or were Hall of Famers, it says to them, we welcome you here. We welcome you to come back home to
Mm-hmm.
be a part of our program. And if you decide to leave at a later time, we don't care. We want you to be a part of who we are and to help bring awareness back to HBCUs because, again, as we mentioned couple episodes ago that in the 70s and early 80s, HBCUs was where all the players were.
Mm-hmm.
So you help bring that back, help us get back to those glory days that we had. Um, and I'll just make this comparison because
Mm-hmm.
I went to a PWI
Mm-hmm.
and I also coached at a PWI. I was a graduate assistant. I wasn't an actual coach, but I was a graduate assistant. So I was in those meetings.
Mm-hmm.
If the HBCUs are in fact doing what I think they're doing, they could be compared to the MAC conference, which is the Mid Atlantic Conference. The MAC
Okay.
conference for so long was considered to be the breeding ground for the next great coach at the biggest university that you so if you wanted to be if you were thought of as the next great coach or if you were looking for the next great coach as an athletic director for these major universities, you're probably first going to the MAC conference to see what coach is running his program well and you know, what coach is winning.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have all of those coaches that we know or that are household names now. They made their ranks or they did it in the MAC conference, and so the HBCUs could be that for black coaches.
Okay.
That Dion could be that first pillar and he could be that first pillar to set off everything else that happens with head coaches, black head coaches, Hall of Fame football players getting into the HBCUs, using HBCUs as their first opportunity as a head coach, and then moving on to bigger and better things. And that's not to slight HBCUs.
I was just
So I
about to
don't
say
want it
that.
to,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to seem that way, but there is a pecking order in everything that we do in life, and it just so happens that HBCUs right now are lower than some of the PWIs. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, when Dion left Jackson State to go to Colorado, in the eyes of the athletic world and as far as the resources are concerned, that was a better opportunity for Deion Sanders. And it'll be many others that come into the HBCU head coaching ranks that will get better opportunities than where they currently would be in HBCUs. I mean, that's
I
just
agree.
how it is. It's not to slight them in any way.
Yeah, it's not slighting in any capacity. I definitely feel like it's a good hire for Bethune Cookman. I think my next question is with what we know about Ed Reed. Does Bethune Cookman have the number one defense in the SWAC next year?
Mm, I think we'll have to look and see who he brings on
Who he brings on?
because while Dion is a good coach, he does run his program similar to how Nick Saban does it, but he has a different type of swag than Nick Saban does.
100%.
He did immediately bring in players from the transfer portal
Mhm.
that changed that program. So I think we'll have to see with Ed Reed at Bethune Cookman who he
Brings
gets
it
to
in.
come to Bethune Cookman and what coaches he surrounds himself with.
That
And
was
from
gonna be my
there, I
next
mean,
question too.
yeah, from there, I think the sky's the limit. You're going to ask about Ray Lewis going with them?
Well, I was going to ask, what does his staff look like? Does he interview random guys, with experience, or does he hire his homies like your Ray Lewis's of the world? Does he do that? You know what I'm saying? Because I know Ray Lewis has mentioned that he wanted to coach eventually. So is this Ray Lewis's stepping stone as well to come with his boy Ed Reed?
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have any issues with him hiring Ed Reed. I'm sorry, with him hiring Ray Lewis at Bethune-Cookman. But like I said, he has had connections at other programs and in the NFL. So, and he's Ed Reed, so I'm sure he can pull in these top-notch coaches to be a part of that program. It's just all about are certain individuals willing to take those opportunities, being that they might not get paid as much as they would had at a different school.
Right. And just to go back to that last question, bruh, if I had Ed Reed as my head coach and Ray Lewis as my defensive coordinator, ain't no what I would love to go play for that university. What?
Well,
Those
first off,
dudes,
you can get the best pregame
the
talk
best
every
pregame talk,
game
bro.
ever.
What? The best motivational talk ever for pregame, bro. What?
No.
Ray Lewis leading that joint? Come on, bro.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
there's gonna be a change if that happens. There would be a change in the recruitment at Bethune-Cookman because there are going to be more Travis Hunters in the world that's going to be going to HBCUs because of the high profile name of Ed Reed and possibly Ray Lewis being at Bethune-Cookman. Bro, what DB and linebacker would not want to go play for them?
Right. And
Come
that's the
on,
thing
man.
that HBCUs have to understand, that even if they are there for a short period of time, that quick flash in the pan that you can get
What?
with not only games that you win, but ticket sales, with your memorabilia being sold, could be very impactful for many years to come. So yeah, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we can only assume if he takes the same path that Deion Sanders took, that he'll probably be gone in 3 years, depending on how things go. Or
Right.
4 years, whatever the case may be. They may leave your school, but for the time that they were there, the amount of notoriety, the amount of money that they brought in could be impactful for the next 5 to 10
5 to
years.
10 years. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So
I think,
so I
yeah.
I I agree with you. My final words on it is I think this is an absolute great hire for Bethune-Cookman. I think Ed Reed will be a great coach for the what is their mascot? Tigers?
Panthers.
Panthers, for the Panthers. And I think he will have a similar impact as Deion Sanders. I don't think he cares to be in the same mode as Deion. Not saying that he doesn't like
Wildcats.
Deion, but
Sorry. Wildcats.
Wildcats. No disrespect to y'all. Um,
Facts.
uh, I don't think he has any. He doesn't care to be in the same mode as Deion. Again, I don't think he has any ill will towards Deion. I think they're best friends, matter of fact,
They
he's one of
really are.
Deion's best friends. Yeah, so but he wants to do things himself. But the natural question, and the natural thought process of everybody outside of Ed Reed and Bethune-Cookman is, can he do with what Deion Sanders did at Jackson State? And so only time will tell, but I think it's a great hire for them.
I think it is too, man. I agree with you in that vein, man. I think Ed Reed is going to make some strides at Bethune-Cookman. I think he's going to have a really good program. I honestly think he's going to have one of the best defenses in the nation. That's just me, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they progress, and I'm looking forward to seeing the progression of Ed Reed's career as a coach, not just at Bethune-Cookman, but beyond too. So I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Stakes, season
What?
1,
Season
episode
1
15.
in the books, baby. Yes, sir.
In the
Part of my wisdom,
books. In the
season
books,
1 in the
man.
books, man.
Yeah, finish us out, bruh.
Hey, man, listen, man. We appreciate all the support that we've been getting from everybody, man. We are now up to 205 subscribers now, man. So we appreciate all 205 of y'all. The 90%, we need to get y'all on board, but we understand it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we appreciate all the support over season 1. It took us so long. It took us so long to actually get this thing off the ground, D-Lo, but we fucking did it, bro. And I'm fucking
We
proud of
did it.
us, man. I'm fucking proud of us that we did this, man. And season 2, which is going to be just as fucking great. We gonna make changes. We gonna
It's to
come
be
back
better.
stronger, and we gonna fucking do this shit, man. So we love
Why you
y'all.
gotta be cussing so much at the end every
But I'm
time,
sorry, bro,
man?
because I be hyped, bro. Because I love this shit, bro. I be hyped, cuz like I don't think you understand, bro. Because this shit has been a long time coming, bro. It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about this for 6 years, bro. And we finally did it, dog. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just hyped. I'm proud of us, man. And I'm hyped for us, man, because me and you, the friendship that we had, the love that we have for each other, the brotherhood, man. This is something that I take a lot of pride in, man. And I can't wait for this to be my full-time job. But that's up to y'all. I'll get this right. But yeah, man, I love it, man. What you think? Take us out, man. What you got?
Yeah, I gotta mess with you, man, because every time towards the end you start to get loose with the lips, pause. But but nah, man. I think season 1 was very, very successful because, like you said, we talked about doing this for so long, put it off for whatever the reason was, but then ultimately decided to do it. And we made strides each week that we jumped on this microphone
For
and
sure.
had conversations with each other about whatever topic it was. And I think season 2, like you said, will come back, will be just as great as we was this season, but even better. We'll make some tweaks and changes to try to figure out what's going to grab the attention of our subscribers and then grab more subscribers in. But we'll figure that out. And until that time comes, I think we'll continue to have these great conversations, take the insights that we have from life, from the experiences that we've had, and put them on the topics that we talk about. Because if you don't know, we talk about sports and entertainment, but we use that as a gateway to get into other aspects of what we deal with as a collective on a day in, day out basis. So while we are looking at it through a sports and entertainment lens, we are talking about politics to a degree. We are talking about relationships to a degree. We are talking about money to a degree. We're talking about all of these different aspects. We're just looking at it through the lens of sports and entertainment. But yeah, we'll come back season 2 and we'll be even bigger and better.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. But before we close it out, man, make sure you like the video, comment on the video because we love to hear from all of y'all, and make sure you please subscribe to the channel. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. And until next season, bro, we out, man.